This week, the Commanders travel to Atlanta, Georgia to take on Marcus Mariota and Dan Quinn's former team, the Atlanta Falcons, here in Week 4. If they win, they can improve to 3-1 on the season. If not, they're going to be going down to 2-2 and maybe doing some soul-searching moving forward. But before we get into this week's preview, where I go over keys to victory, scouting report on Michael Penix Jr., and more, make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we are currently in a subscriber battle with our frenemies here at the Falcons Today channel here at Chat Sports. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're just 6 new subscribers behind Falcons Today this week. So if we could just get 10 of you guys to click that subscribe button today, we will take the lead. And new viewers, we are counting on you guys to make sure we can get in the lead here and beat the Atlanta Falcons off the field before hopefully the Commanders can beat them on the field in Atlanta on Sunday. So really do appreciate all of your guys' support. And with that, let's dive right into this matchup here between the 2-1 Commanders, who will be going to Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta to take on Atlanta, where they are 1-2 right now. All right, and Atlanta is a team that has certainly got a young quarterback. They've got a head coach that's still trying to find his way in the National Football League, and Raheem Morris. They got a new DC and Jeff Ulbrich. Like, they've got a lot of new here in Atlanta, and they're still trying to find their way and their identity as a football team this season. And this week, it's actually a revenge game here for Dan Quinn, who will be returning to Atlanta. Of course, he spent many seasons there, infamously had that 28-3 botching of a Super Bowl versus Tom Brady and the New England Patriots there, and then he ended up getting fired just a few short years after that. So, I'm sure Dan doesn't have any hard feelings towards the Blank family or anything like that, but I'm sure he would love to go into that stadium and beat his former team with the Washington Commanders here. Now, the guys that will be out this week in terms of injuries, Will Harris fractured his fibula last week. He will be out. He was placed on IR. He will miss at least the next 4 weeks. And then the 2 guys on IR that won't be playing for the Falcons in terms of their starters are right tackle Caleb McGarry. He's out for the entirety of the season. And Troy Anderson, and an off-ball linebacker, will be out for this one as well. Then there's a number of injuries to watch on both teams. Now, especially the Commanders, because you got Jayden Daniels, who looks like he is on track to play. If he doesn't play, it will be Marcus Mariota, who also, by the way, used to play for the Atlanta Falcons. That could be a potential revenge storyline here. Terry McLaurin dealing with a quad/hip flexor injury. Ian Rappaport from NFL Network reported this week that it's kind of a weird injury, and it's not looking great for his chances of playing on Sunday, which is certainly a big blow to this Commanders offense. But then John Bates and Noah Brown are still dealing with groin injuries. They're questionable at this point in the week. Percy Butler, Trey Amos, and then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt was added to the injury report this week. He has not been practicing to start this week off with a knee injury, so we'll keep you guys updated once the final injury report comes out on Friday. But A.J. Terrell, star corner for the Atlanta Falcons, is not expected to be able to go with a hamstring injury this week. Got injured last week, and it's looking like he's not going to be able to play versus the Commanders on Sunday. So that should be so you're losing your number one receiver most likely in Terry McLaurin, but at the same time, they're not going to have their number one corner. So I guess that evens out a little bit. But the results so far for the Atlanta Falcons, they are 1-2. They lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home 23-20 in a very closely fought divisional matchup. Then they've been on the road the last 2 weeks. They beat the Minnesota Vikings and J.J. McCarthy at US Bank Stadium 22-6, a dominating defensive performance. And then they follow that up with maybe their worst performance of the year, 30-0 loss to an 0-2 Carolina Panthers team in Charlotte. So they're certainly looking for a bounce back here this week. Taking a look at the scheme and coaching breakdown for the Atlanta Falcons, head coach Raheem Morris has had multiple interim stops, and now he's had an opportunity to be a head coach in this league full-time, and this is his second year in Atlanta. He is currently 30-49 as an NFL head coach. The offense that they run here is a McVay West Coast system brought over by Zach Robinson, who used to work for McVay in Los Angeles. Then on defense, they run a solid 4-2 kind of nickel-based defense led by Jeff Ulbrich. their new defensive coordinator. Of course, he comes over from the New York Jets, previously working for Robert Saleh. Then we get to the offensive roster here for Atlanta. You got Michael Penix Jr., the second-year quarterback out of Washington, leading the way here. Along the offensive trench, you've got Jake Matthews as an excellent left tackle. You got Matthew Bergeron at left guard, Ryan Nuzul as a center. Then you got one of the best, if not the best, guard in football, and Chris Lindstrom there on the right side. And then they've got Elijah Wilkerson as the starting right tackle right now after Caleb McGarry had that season-ending injury. They run a lot of 11 personnel, which means 3 receivers on the field. So you're going to have Drake London, you're going to have Darnell Mooney, and you're going to have Ray McLeod out there for most of the time with this Falcons team. But then Bijan Robinson is another really big receiving threat that you're going to have to look out for, not to mention what he brings with his legs in the ground game. And Kyle Pitts has actually turned it around a little bit so far this year. They're actually prioritizing getting him the football, and he's actually doing a pretty decent job so far this year. So hopefully after kind of corralling Brock Bowers and the Raiders last week, they can do the same with Kyle Pitts. Then along the defensive line, they got 2 rookies starting for them at the edge. They spent 2 first-round picks, and they gave up next year's first-round pick to be able to go out and get the other one here. You got Jalen Walker and James Pierce, 2 guys that are very highly touted coming out of the SEC. They've had some really good moments to start their rookie careers here. They got David Onyemata and Zach Harrison on the interior. A little bit of a squishy defensive interior there that I think the Commanders can maybe take advantage of. Running the ball up the middle with some power run scheme, I think, is something that Cliff Kingsbury should definitely tap into this weekend. Then the inside linebackers with Troy Anderson now. You got Caden Ellis, a really good off-ball backer, and then Divine Diablo is right now starting for them with Anderson out of the lineup. Then with A.J. Terrell expected to be out this week with a hamstring injury, this is what I'm expecting the starting secondary for Atlanta to look like this week. Mike Hughes and D. Alford will be the starting cornerback duo. Then you got Jesse Bates and Xavier Watts as the 2 safeties. And then Billy Bowman Jr. is going to be the nickel cornerback. The 2 rookies there, Xavier Watts and Billy Bowman, have been really, really good in coverage to start this year. They've made some big impact plays to this point in the season. So still to come here, my keys to victory versus the Falcons. I've got my scouting report on quarterback Michael Penix Jr. and how the Commanders can attack him. And then I've got my official Week 4 score prediction coming up here in just a few minutes. But before we get into the rest of this week's preview here on the Commanders Report, let's have a word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, being right can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this football season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'll be getting my PrizePicks lineups in all season long and all week long. Tonight, it's going to be a Thursday night football between the Cardinals and Seahawks. PrizePicks is super simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from PrizePicks that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks will not count that as a loss. So for this particular matchup, Commanders versus Falcons, this is my PrizePicks lineup for this week. I'm taking the more on rushing and receiving yards for Bijan Robinson. I'm taking the more for Matt Gay field goals made. I'm taking the less on Michael Penix passing yards. So if you guys want to get a projection in today, you can do so by downloading the PrizePicks app today and using code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the PrizePicks app today. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So now let's get to our keys to victory here to beat the Atlanta Falcons here in Week 4, and we'll start with Michael Penix Jr., and I just don't think that this defense should let him off easy, all right? I want Joe Witt and Dan Quinn to throw everything that they've got at him in terms of blitzes, in terms of rotating coverages, because this is a young quarterback that has had some mental processing issues and some decision-making issues, and he doesn't have a lot of playmaking ability outside of structure. You guys can take a look here. Defenses have really been feasting against this Falcons passing attack to start the season. Just a 58.6% completion percentage, about 200 passing yards a game. He's thrown more interceptions than touchdowns through 3 weeks, and his passer rating certainly reflects that. And now, when you look at Michael Penix's profile here as a player, as a talent, He's got an incredible amount of arm strength. He can push the ball down the field, fit it into tight windows to every level of the field. He wants to be aggressive with it as well. He wants to throw the ball down the field. And then some of the mental processing stuff down the field is actually pretty advanced for somebody at his point in his NFL career. And frankly, it needs to be with his lack of mobility, his lack of playmaking ability. He really doesn't provide them anything outside of structure. So if you can get him off his first and second reads and you can force him to try and, scramble a little bit, it's not going to be good for Michael Penix Jr. He's going to force the ball into tight windows. I think Washington's focus here needs to be to, light him up a little bit, but also to force Penix to be methodical, all right? Keep the lid on the defense. Force him to take 5-10-yard chunks off the field there instead of the 50-yard bomb down the field. Force him to check it down. Make him, have him be out there on the field for as many plays as possible, essentially, and then light him up in certain key situations to force him into bad decisions. I have every confidence in the world that Joe Witt and Dan Quinn are going to do a good job on Michael Penix here on Sunday. Then really the big thing on defense for the Commanders, guys, is going to be to contain Bijan Robinson, because this is the one guy that, in my opinion, can kill you in this Atlanta offense. All right, Bijan is one of the most explosive running backs in the league. He's already up to 239 yards rushing so far this year, on top of his 164 yards receiving, and he has just been an absolute force to start this year. Now, he only has one touchdown to start off the year, but I'm sure they're going to want to feed him a little bit more, and they also go to Tyler Algier. They go to their other backs here as well, so they want to have a really established run game. The Commanders can't let that happen. They got to load the box. They got to do those things. They got to, maintain their run fits. They got to play good run defense, and this defensive front needs to continue to win the line of scrimmage. They've certainly shown that an ability to do that through the first 3 weeks to this point. They got to do it again in Atlanta on Sunday. Then we move on over to the offensive side of the ball here, which I think the main thing this week, especially with Terry McLaurin probably not playing on Sunday, is to get the run game going, all right? When you can get creative with this, you can do jet sweeps and orbit motions with Deebo Samuel. You can do, you can mix things up in terms of which running back is out there. They certainly did that last week, where they have like a true committee right now where you've got Ja'Cory Krosky-Mary, you've got Jerry McNichols, and you got Chris Rodriguez Jr. all getting their fair share of carries right now. And then, you can also incorporate the quarterback, whether that's Jayden Daniels coming back on Sunday. It certainly seems like he's on track to do that, or whether that's Marcus Mariota, who certainly showed that he's got some wheels left in the tank. I think that's going to be a big part of the offensive game plan for Cliff Kingsbury, and it certainly needs to be if this team's going to put up a lot of points. Then another thing that the offense needs to do is to keep the rookie edge rushers at bay. Jalen Walker and James Pierce have been pretty explosive to start their rookie campaigns, and Laramie Tunsil and a fellow rookie, Josh Connerly Jr., is going to be tasked with stopping them. I have to say, though, man, like going up against Brian Burns, Micah Parsons, and Max Crosby the first 3 weeks, going up against James Pierce Jr. should be a walk in the park for Josh Connerly Jr. Compared to those superstars. Then we get to the next key to victory here on offense, which is that I think a young wide receiver of some sort needs to step up, because you're not going to have Terry McLaurin out there. It's sounding like you're not going to have Noah Brown out there either. So you're going to have Deebo, and then you're probably going to have Luke McCaffrey and or Jalen Lane out there. They might go 2 tight ends. They might even go a lot of 3 tight ends and really, go into the run game. It'll be interesting to see what the offensive game plan is for Cliff Kingsbury versus this Atlanta defense. But you can't just live in one wide receiver sets all day long, especially when that one receiver is Deebo Samuel, and he's not separating very much, right? So you got to have one of these younger receivers step up, and I'm hoping that it's Luke McCaffrey, who's shown some flashes over the last 2 weeks. Then the final key to victory for me, guys, is to play a clean game. All right, I really do believe that this Washington Commanders team is just a better overall football team than this Atlanta team, and I think that if you can limit the turnovers, if you can limit the penalties, that's been an issue with the Commanders in the past. Hopefully they can be a very well-rounded unit here, not to make too many bone-crushing mistakes, and I think if that happens, they will come away with a victory. So I'm going to predict a 28-20 victory for your Washington Commanders this week. And honestly, if this defense really steps up and they can stop Bijan Robinson, they can win the line of scrimmage, and they can do some fun stuff to get Michael Penix Jr. uncomfortable, it might even be less than 20 points given up. So I think that whoever's at quarterback, Jayden Daniels, Marcus Mariota, I still have the Commanders winning either way. Honestly, the Commanders offense doesn't skip a beat usually when Mariota's out there, so I'm going to predict 28-20 whether Jayden or Marcus is out there at QB. And now it's your turn down there in the comment section. Predict the score of Commanders versus Falcons for me down there in the comment section. For me, I've got 28-20 Commanders. Let me know your pick down there in the comment section. And just a reminder here, guys, we're going to be going live for Week 4 here on Sunday with our live coverage of Commanders versus Falcons. We're going to be reacting to the entire game. We're going to be going live pretty shortly before kickoff at around 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll have extensive post-game coverage after the game, so make sure you guys stop by Sunday at game time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time for our live coverage of Commanders versus the Falcons. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support, and make sure you guys click that subscribe button for all of our previews like we did today, all of our watch parties that we do for just about every single Commanders game, plus our post-game reactions to every Commanders game this season. Really do appreciate all of your guys' support. Thanks for watching this week's Commanders Report preview. Until next time, guys, go raise them hail.